All right, so this one is, thank you, Gavin, for teeing it up really well with the shout out to cloud at the end there. Transforming workflow with cloud. We've got Kim and Derek. I'm going to start. I'm Chuck Doerr. I'm OpenFin's one of OpenFin's co-founders. We've been working with Kim for a long time. We've been using AWS for a long time. We're super excited about this triangle of fun and excitement, and mostly, I think, delivery that we've got going on between our three firms. But we're going to just start with a quick intro, who you are, what firm, and a sentence or two about why we're on stage. Kim, kick us off.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Prado. I'm with BMO Capital Markets, and I'm extremely passionate about the client experience and the user experience and surfacing data in the most simplistic way possible for our users in a self-serve model. And having to get to the point where tech isn't an impediment to the business, right? The goal is that we start delivering things that the business can actually use themselves without tech being in the middle.
Derek?
Hey, everybody. I'm Derek Cramton. My job is to manage the relationship between BMO and AWS. And BMO is just a wonderful, wonderful client to work with. And what we try and do is use every capability that AWS has to help BMO succeed.
Awesome. Kim, why don't you lay some foundation for the conversation here? Talk a little bit about the journey that you're on at BMO Capital Markets, and what are we doing here? What are we trying to achieve?
Yeah. So we kicked off this data strategy. I think it was about 2 years ago, right? So I came in and I started looking at how we were doing things and how we were using data and how much data we were buying, how much data we were creating, and how we were having problems surfacing information to the end user. And it turned out that took a really long time, right? So every time you wanted to integrate a new data set into your application, you had to get it, you had to normalize it, you had to map it, you then had to integrate it, and then it's a year, 6 months later, and the user's totally, you've lost the pulse of being able to, deliver value to the business. And so, one of the first things we did is taking all the lessons from the years past and say to ourselves, okay, what shouldn't we do again? And really it came down to creating a proper data ingestion engine, leveraging the cloud and all the tooling that comes with the cloud to actually bring all the different data sources together in a simple way, right? So this way, in a federated way, anyone around the firm can actually take the data that they've produced or they're creating or that they've bought and provide it into the cloud data mesh and map it. It automatically gets mapped and normalized and then available to the end user through another product which we don't have on stage, which we use called AMPS anyway. And we started this journey because really when you think about what the competitive edge is for capital markets, it's data, right? It's getting at your data, it's understanding your customer, it's understanding the next best action, and it's arming the business with what they need and telling them what they don't know, right? So at the end of the day, the goal is to leverage all the assets around the firm, integrate them with third-party data, and actually surface what matters, not what you think matters, but what actually matters. And so with that, the only way to do this at scale is to use the cloud and to do it fast. And so we partnered with AWS, and BMO's got a huge investment in AWS, so doing tons of work there. And I was like, okay, I'm allowed to use the cloud. Step one, this is awesome. I can put the client data on the cloud. That's magical. I was like, so we're off to the races. And so we started with our banking business and really focused, on small, tiny wins to get to an end game and not trying to boil the ocean. And we worked very close with these folks and Ravi from Amazon. Where's Ravi? Oh, there he is. Yes, there he is. Thank you. And David Leong is probably here somewhere too. I don't know where Dave, there he is. Those two actually did all the work, in case anyone's curious. But to really come up with, smart, fast ways to deliver. Tech takes too long and it's too expensive, right? That's everybody's complaining about us. And so we need to change that messaging and change the opinion of the business. So.
Awesome.
And so Derek, I mean, you're a partner in this journey.
Yeah.
Like, what are the things that you do with BMO Capital Markets to support them and sort of drive them towards success here?
I think the big thing that we do is try and work as hard as we can to understand what BMO Capital Markets is trying to accomplish, and always be working backwards from that to support them. I think there's a tendency as a vendor to want to get your customer to use as much of your stuff as you can. And we never really think that way at AWS. We've got a set of leadership principles that we adhere to, and the most important of which is customer obsession. And that means starting from the customer's perspective and working backwards. So when Kim describes the things that she's describing about what's important, people like Ravi will listen only for what can we do to help. And we're not trying to look for other ways to get them to use more AWS. And I think that's part of the reason that it's worked out so well.
Yeah, I would agree.
So I love to talk about data, and I love to talk about ingesting data and getting into a place where we can get it in front of users. The part I, of course, care about the most is getting it in front of users. What are your pathways to surfacing data to your most important users? Like, how are you driving better results there?
Yeah, so it comes down to a couple things, right? Again, like if your back-end services team is building a component, and then you have another team over here building your UI, and they're not working together, you're not going to deliver fast and furious, right? And then you're going to end up with a UI that's beautiful with no data in it, right? So you want to avoid that. So part of what we've done, and I hate to use the word agile, but it's kind of agile, right? We bring teams together to deliver specific capabilities. It's all about delivering a capability and not a full ginormous system, and just keep delivering small capabilities to the end user. But really where we're heading is, trying to take that data and surfacing it in a smart way. And so one of the things we've done is we sat down and we were like, okay, we need a notification service just like everybody else, right? And I think back to the days when we built this thing called the Alerter, and the Alerter was this giant piece of software that took 10 years, maybe 2, but it felt like 10. And like maybe had two streams of data going into it, and I was all excited that one alert happened, and that was considered success, right? But the users didn't look at it as success. In fact, they were like, you wasted our money. So trying to flip that on its head, right? Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we've partnered with OpenFin and with AWS to be like a sponsor to help them build a capability for us to actually take the notification center out of the workspace application and the best of the cloud to actually bring it together. Because you think about it, they have all our data and they have our user experience. So why am I going to hurt myself here? And so, we were able to actually do this in a very simplistic way that then other people can benefit from.
I think what you said to us was, can't you just do this?
Now? Yeah.
There was like emotion.
Like now?
And
Why?
so I mean, we're OpenFin, of course, we're super excited to have BMO Capital Markets as a design partner around our cloud solution. And we're at a place now where we're able to deliver this service as a SaaS service with extensions into BMO's own AWS infrastructure, where they've invested a lot of time, energy, money for reliability, for connectivity, right? We're able to sort of extend our reach into their AWS footprint to take advantage of all that stuff, and really deliver, I wouldn't call it a fully 100% traditional SaaS solution, but it's a SaaS-y solution that leverages all the great capabilities of OpenFin as a nimble partner, but leverages all the investment that BMO's doing. So it's a really interesting sort of threading of the needle to meet all the different needs. Derek, from an AWS perspective, do you see other customers taking this path?
Absolutely. In fact, I think there's a misconception that the reason why people go to cloud is to save money. There's a sense that by doing it, somehow it's going to just magically create some business value for you. And I think the things that you've described, creating a flexible solution that takes advantage of the cloud's capabilities to bring things to market more quickly, to be able to experiment, to have different parties work together more seamlessly, is what people are starting to do more and more, and unlocking what I think is the true benefit of cloud.
So now, Kim, we're not running on the SaaS infrastructure today, right? But you've got a footprint out there. You're doing stuff on a daily basis, and we're sort of driving towards this ultimate goal. How does the business react when you're sort of delivering bits along the way? You have a vision that you've communicated. How does that conversation go?
It gets a little sticky because they're like, well, why is it taking so long, right? Why am I only getting this one thing? Where's the rest? I can't use it because I don't have the rest of it. And they get really impatient. But then once you get the machinery down and you start moving fast, it starts moving faster, and they're like, wow, this is actually really good. I'm glad we're doing it. So it's just, you've got to really believe in what you're doing and not give in and feel really confident with your approach. And you've got to own it, right? You got to really own it. You've got to own the good and the bad, and you're not going to be perfect, and you're going to make mistakes, and you've got to educate the business on the fact that by making a mistake, the next thing is going to be even better. So it's not about being perfect and hitting it out of the park day one, right? So
Like really stepwise delivery, build on the successes.
yeah.
And accept that there's going to be failures. I think one of the things, particularly in a financial services environment, is there's this sense that everything has to be perfect the first time, and that a good error rate would be zero. And I think that
It's not reality.
Yeah, Kim's bringing more of the attitude of, let's get it mostly right, and then make sure the mistakes you make aren't life-threatening, and then you can make more speed that way.
Yeah, and honestly we love that attitude as we're spinning up our cloud services backends, our SaaS solution, right? Because if you go take a step back and say, hey, what do we need to do all this, right? It's a big, complex problem. Like, you're going to build a big, complex solution that's going to take forever to get to market, right? But by doing this stepwise delivery, saying, okay, well, like, what's the MVP, right, for what, how do we meet these business needs? How do we give the business new insights that they weren't able to get before? How are we able to, change, say, an event-driven workflow from being clunky where you're copying and pasting a whole bunch of stuff into something that is, driven by context, where you've got much lower operational risk, higher efficiency in the process, right? Now, are there particular areas that are more welcoming to this change? Are there people that are getting more sort of alpha out of it on day one, or is it just like, hey, we're doing this across the firm and it's got to happen?
Yeah, I think there's definitely pockets that appreciate it more and are more willing to adopt, new technology. And there's the people that will never change, that will use their pen and pad till they die, right? And those are not the users that we go after. We tend to work with the folks that are more innovative. But I would say that the key is what you had on the screen before around mobile, right? Like, all of this is great, but if there's one thing we've all learned, is everything's got to work on mobile in some way, shape, or form. And that's not something that a lot of people were really that comfortable with back in the day, but now it's really important. So that was another big lesson learned, right? Is that, when, I went down this journey before, everything was desktop. Now it's like right out of the gate, we're like, how can we do this for mobile? How can we leverage what we did for mobile on the desktop? Like, thinking more about mobile first versus desktop first. And so I'm glad to see that you guys are working on that finally, Chuck.
I mean, what's super cool about that one is that we can literally just bring workspaces straight onto the mobile devices, and we have an iPad going with the sort of same stuff as our desktop solution back at the booth, which is super cool. And of course, you get like a lot of extra budget, right, to do the mobile thing,
all day long.
right? Like, nothing but budget.
But you're going to get funded more effectively if you don't go for the giant project, right? And I think that's an important point. Like, when you go in and say, well, I need 3 years and $25 million to do something, everybody's like, oh, I'm not doing that, right? If you go in and say, listen, I think we can make a material difference for a couple $100,000 if we do it this way, and you work with your partners, to get to a price point that you can actually achieve and stick with, and then show delivery, then you'll get the next investment. But you have to earn that investment, right? No one's going to just give you the funding.
Right. And so I think one of the things that we've seen you do for a number of years is buy solutions and integrate rather than,
Yeah.
doing a lot of independent building. Like, how do you convince your stakeholders that that's like a good, because, banking, everyone builds everything, right?
Yeah.
How do you convince them that, no, you got to buy products, you got to integrate them?
Oh boy.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I think it
A lot of foul
depends on
language.
the capability, right? But I would say, I think about it as build, buy, and open source and bringing those three components together. I don't think it's just build and buy. And, the key is time to market and not reinventing the wheel. But what we do build is the alpha stuff and the real differentiators, right? So, we're not going to buy an analytics engine that's going to, figure out our, recommend the clients for something. We're going to build that, right? But we are going to buy the container that it lives in, right? And the notifications and, the cloud stuff. So.
And Derek, I mean, this philosophy around just leveraging proven components, right, is what cloud is, right?
Yes. Yep.
Like when you're interacting with your sort of other banks, are they thinking about that in that way? Are they saying, hey, I'm using a managed Postgres database here, like I should buy as many services as I can on top of this, or are they saying, are they still really more compartmentalized in how they're picking things up?
Yeah, and I don't think there's a simple answer to that question. I only work with BMO. So my only passion is so I can't comment on other banks, but it really is just situational. I don't think I can add much to what Kim said. You've got to make appropriate decisions based on your situation and don't be wedded to one particular point of view.
Yeah, I can tell you when it came to a point where we were needing to stand up something in the BMO infrastructure on AWS to do caching, right? We went through the Amazon catalog of services and we were like, how about Elasticache? Like, does Elasticache work for everyone?
Yeah.
Right. That caches.
Yeah.
And we get with the architecture team, and they're like, oh yeah, Elasticache, it's an approved technology. You can definitely do that. And we're like, okay, great. So we're going to use a suite of Amazon services. We're not going to have to build a ton of stuff, but we're going to be able to build this extension to our SaaS services that brings architectural compliance to our SaaS service.
There's two things I would add to that, though. One is, one common easy mistake to make is whatever capability you're rebuilding, you've already got today. You're going to often try and recreate that like you had it on premises. A lot of times rebuilding it in the cloud the same way you made it on premises is exactly the wrong thing to do. And so sometimes you really have to change your mindset as you build things. And the second thing is, because there's so many services and they're all new to a lot of people, I think it's really important to get help, either from your AWS team or a consulting partner or so on, because you can really get into trouble in a hurry by doing it wrong. So yeah, sure, you can look up and say, Elasticache looks like it would do this, and it's good to do the research and experiment with it. But I would make sure that you've got someone with experience helping you as well, otherwise it can not go well.
And it's also, I think it's, for us, it was important to be so tightly partnered with BMO because, OpenFin's version of AWS is different than BMO's version of AWS, right? There are services that are preferred within BMO, right? Because they've got, sort of testing infrastructure built around them or security infrastructure built around them. And so, we showed up and we were like, okay, so we're going to deploy some services on your AWS. Here's our Terraform stuff. And they were like, yeah, no, we don't do that. No. We're CDK, and so we're like, okay, let's figure that out. And then we were using a couple services that hadn't been through the approval process, and we had to swap them out for different services that were approved, right? And so, again, this tight partnering among our three firms in order to be able to sort of deliver this business value, right? And really a forward-looking roadmap around it. Honestly, it's felt incredibly powerful for us. We've gotten so much value out of that, out of the feedback loop, and then, of course, that drive to deliver value early means that we get to prioritize things in a different way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we're kind of coming in to the end here. I wanted to give each of you an opportunity to throw some closing thoughts, a tidbit to encourage people on their cloud journey. Kim, maybe start with you.
You know, I would just say fight for it, right? Like when you go to the cloud police and they say no, just go back again, ask differently. Bring somebody with you that probably knows what you don't know and have them ask, and then ask again. Because don't give up, because it makes a big difference. Because once you get there, the benefits are mind-blowing. And I didn't believe it until we actually did it. And I just can't stress enough, don't give up on the cloud, and really take a look at the notification center. Game changer.
Game changer.
Yeah, well, I guess my comment would be to take an innovative mindset and think about experimentation. It's really important to just do something, try something, learn how it works. You're going to be surprised what you didn't go the way you expected. And don't try and think of some really complicated, magical end state that's going to take a year to get to. Just do something, deliver some value, then move on to the next thing.
So from my perspective, this project that we're design partnering on, delivering, I'd be hard pressed to name a faster moving, more transformational project in like a global bank that I've ever seen, right? The closeness of the teams, and we have literal daily stand-ups, driving this architecture forward. Kim's got stuff in production that she was just telling me about today that I wasn't even aware of. She's pushing every day, driving change with her tech organization. It's an incredible project. I'm so excited for us to get to a point where we can eventually show it to everyone, which I'm sure we'll do in 24. But this thing is clicking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're going to be around corner Kim, corner Doerr, and talk about this transformational journey that they're on, because it's really cool. Anyway, that's it for our panel here, our fireside talk.